Hello students, Michael Sanchez, violin teacher here. Hope you guys are having a good evening. So in today's Irish fiddle class, we're going to be going through a song. It's actually the Old Time Billy and the Lowground piece, which is a good fiddle tune. And we will be working on a scale to help improve our skills on the fiddle. So I find quite often that students struggle to really get into a practice routine. So hopefully if you guys are listening right now and you guys have been struggling to really be satisfied about your practicing in progress, here's some encouraging words for you. So my suggestion to a lot of students that are struggling with this is to try to think of their practice sessions more in smaller groups. So I find often students look at their practice sessions as either being in half-hour sessions or 60-minute sessions, which is ideal, but unfortunately that can be overwhelming for a lot of people, especially like in the summertime when it's a lot of fun things you can do and nice weather and all that stuff. So my suggestion for you guys would be to set lower goals for yourself, things that are very attainable, even to where you'd say, oh, that's no problem, there's no way I could not do that. Because the more that you can get into a routine and actually do the things that you say that are really easy, the more you eventually will just start increasing that naturally. But if you're going more at it like, ideally I should be able to practice an hour a day, but then you don't practice an hour a day, then you're going to get down on yourself, get discouraged. And ultimately, we're trying to run a marathon here. We're not trying to run a sprint. We have to get to the finish line, so we don't want to overpace ourselves and get to the point where we can't achieve the goals, which is to develop a great sound on the fiddle and become a good player. So that would be my suggestion for you guys this week, is just to really take things in small chunks, not overextend yourself. A good goal would be to practice, say, 5 times this week for 15 minutes. And it could be done twice in one day. So like let's say you're getting towards the end of the week, you've only done it twice. You could do it all in one day. You could do the rest in one day. Don't make it to where you have to do 5 days a week. Just do whatever you can. And the less time that you require yourself, the more it's probably doable and the more you could probably not come up with an excuse. Because if it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes, you can always fit that in, right, over an hour with how busy lives can be. Okay, so there's my lecture for the day, and hopefully that will encourage you guys a little bit. So what we're going to do is start with a G major 2-octave scale, because the song we're going to be learning, Old Time Billy and the Lowground, is in the key of G. So I always like to learn the scales that would apply to the piece that we're learning. We're not going to learn it the typical way of, the way a classical player would. We're going to try to do some techniques that would apply to the song we're going to do. So what I'd like to do is work on some droning, which basically means playing 2 strings at the same time, one of them being an open string. So if I do a drone, for example, on the G and D, it's going to sound like this. So right there I'm playing actually 2 strings at once. My hand is over the instrument. My 4th finger is not touching the D. I'm definitely keeping it away from it. One thing you can practice is doing this. Right there, I'm just kind of rocking my wrist to get that slide drone going. That's a really cool sound that a lot of people like in country music play, or a lot of different styles, play. That sort of sound is fun to play. But yeah, we want to practice it in specifically maybe a scale. So I'll write in here where we're going to do these drones. So the first one we can achieve on the D, the 5th note of the scale. I'll go ahead and circle it. This note here, we're going to practice playing 4th finger while playing open. And a good way to actually practice drones is to slide into it, because then you can really practice getting that perfect drone. What I mean by that is that the pitches are exactly even. You can always tell when a drone's out of tune. So here's an out of tune drone. You can obviously tell that one note is like C sharp almost, and the D obviously. That sounds pretty bad. We want to sound like this. Want them to sound even. So sliding into it is actually good practice, and it's sort of a cheat almost of achieving a good drone, is to slide into it. Because if you're trying to get it right on the first time, it just is very hard to do, especially if you're not, really, really advanced. So definitely practice sliding into it. It's kind of like doing vibrato. Technically vibrato helps intonation, just like a sliding into a drone helps intonation. So that fifth note, you could do that. And then the next one that is possible would be on the A, where we can do fourth finger open, / open. You can slide into that as well. And then the next one would be the E. You can play fourth finger on the A string, slide into it, and open E. So basically there's 3 spots where we can work on droning. So this is what it would sound like. Don't worry about the rhythms or anything, being that they're eighth notes. Just we're trying to practice drones. Just like that. And you could even do it with the thirds. Let's do that. So on and so on. Okay, so I think a good assignment for this week would be to work on droning with the G major 2-octave scale. Raise your hand if that makes sense. All right. Raise your hand if you're going to do it. All right. Good. Got some dedicated students here. Awesome. All right, let's go on to our piece that we're going to learn today. Always like to start off with scales. It's a really good way to warm up. And the more that we do our scales, the more we're going to sound better in our pieces. So I told people in the last class, actually, that I would say consistently working on your scales helps your progress about 50%. So if you never practice your scales and you've been playing for 3 years, somebody that practices every day their scales is going to be playing like somebody that's been playing for 4.5 years compared to you that's been playing the same amount of time. So it really makes a significant difference. If you look at that in the grand scheme, somebody that never practiced scales that's been playing for 10 years, somebody that's been practicing scales consistently is going to play more like 15 years experience, or even more. So it's quite a big difference in your ability to play in tune and to get a good sound. Okay, so let's I'll go ahead and play this piece for you, Old Time Billy in the Lowground. I'll play it slowly so you guys can kind of hear what it's supposed to sound like. I won't add too many improv and ornamentations until we start getting into it. I'll take the second ending as well. It's like that. So it's kind of an interesting second ending. Do you guys notice that? There's 3/2 time there. It's a little bit unique there, how you have basically an extra beat in those measures there. Kind of interesting. For those that are more fiddlers that don't really read music, then probably don't know what I'm talking about. But I noticed that. Okay. So one thing that I definitely could talk about in this is the bowings that we can add in that technically are not actually written in the music. So it would be pretty boring to play this as far as bowings go. It wouldn't sound very fiddly. But if we do what's called the Nashville Shuffle, it's definitely going to add a lot to a piece like this. So basically a Nashville Shuffle, I'll just explain kind of on the side what we're dealing with here, is basically whenever you have 4 eighth notes lined up, so you have, here's eighth note 1, here's eighth note 2, 3, and 4. A Nashville Shuffle is basically where the first 2 sets of eighth notes out of 4 you're going to slur, and the next 2 you're going to stay separate. That's a common bowing that you'll find in a lot of different styles, bluegrass, Irish, that is assumed or can be done that, with a piece that doesn't have any bowings, it's definitely a good practice to establish some sort of bowing, and this is a good pattern to establish. So the first example where you could do this is right here, because you have these 4 eighth notes. So that could be slurred. You can really just follow that pattern throughout. Fiddle is very laid back and loose, so you certainly don't have to stick to it. Nobody's going to keep you to it. But technically, if you were to do what I'm doing right now, this is a Nashville Shuffle bowing. You might not have known that it's called the Nashville Shuffle, but have done the bowing before, I'm sure. All right. If you see in the next part, actually, they have a tie right here going into the next measure. So technically, you can't slur. You could actually. We'll slur it. Yep. Okay. So we'll continue on the trend. So we're basically slurring 3 together there. Slur, slur, slur. Okay, so that's, I think, a good place to start as far as changing it up a little bit. Definitely sliding into notes, anything that's a quarter note, I think is effective. Since we just were working on drones, I think this would actually be a perfect spot to work on it, to play a drone right there at the end of the first line. Let's see what else. So yeah, I'm putting in some slides. All right, so let me just play what we got so far, and I'll add as we go. So the way the bowing works out, it's not really ideal. So I'm going to change something up here. So I'm actually going to kind of do a combined slur. So I'm playing the A along with the triplet. So I'm playing. Like that. One other thing I added in here that sounds good, whenever you have that F natural, it sounds kind of cool to slide into it, but just kind of a very slight slide. It doesn't have to be really dramatic. I'll play it from the beginning, see if you can hear that slight slide with that F natural. It sounds kind of homegrown hillbilly. I always call it homegrown hillbilly. Right here even, you can slide into this list a little bit. And what you could actually do is, let me put this slide in, is right in here with this droning action, you guys could actually vary up the rhythms there a little bit to make it sound different each time. So instead of just going, you could do, like that. I actually went into the triplet there. But just try to vary what you do there each time. That would sound cool. So you could do that with the drones there. Raise your hand if that makes sense, how to maybe change the rhythms up there while you're droning. Like that. Does that make sense? Hopefully. Okay. All right. So let's continue on here and go to the second line. So we have... Another slide would be good here. Second ending. You slide right there with the F natural. Slide there in the C natural, I think would be good. You really can do slides anywhere. I'm putting them in kind of random spots, but you can do it so many different ways. And you really could change up rhythms. You could change the notes up. There's a lot of spots for that. But yeah, maybe for the rest of this time, what I'm going to do is just kind of give you guys some tips on increasing speed. So a song like this sounds best when it goes fast. So what you have to do to be able to play it fast is have good left-hand technique, making sure that you're not tense while reaching for drones and reaching for slides. If you're just placing fingers down and not using the hand to find notes, then you're going to be able to achieve more speed. Make sure that you're not picking your fingers too far off the fingerboard. That's another tip for playing fast. But what I would suggest is maybe getting a metronome and finding out where you play this piece the best. You maybe can make a couple mistakes, but for the most part, playing it properly, find out what speed that's at, and then try to increase the speed by, say, 2 to 3 metronome points per day or per week or whatever. That's normally a good rate. If you go faster than that, then you're probably not doing it properly. So it's important to play the song properly as well as increasing the speed. That is one effective way to grow speed. A lot of times as you progress and you become more an advanced player, you'll kind of just naturally get faster and know kind of what your limits are as far as, don't go too fast to where you can't play it properly. But try to find where that spot is. I would say it's 85 to 90 percentile as far as playing it proper, and then work your way up from there. Okay, maybe let's push it a little bit, play a little faster. I'm going to try to keep things that I have written in, the slurs, the slides, the drones, see how I do. All right, ready, set, go. All right, let's say that's medium speed. Let's go up to, say, fast, and then I'll do super fast. All right, so that was fast. I would say I might make a few mistakes going too fast. What I do, though, if I do make a mistake on a note, I'll just kind of change it up to something a little bit different. That's a skill that you kind of acquire over time. You don't just kind of stop and say, oh, I messed up. So you might hear a few different notes. We'll see how it goes. All right, I would say that's up to speed. One other thing I guess I didn't really talk about a lot today is adding in accents. This would definitely be a piece where adding in accents would add a little bit more to it. So what you would do there is on every beat 2 and 4, so I'm basically underlining at the very beginning here what beats 2 and 4 are. Well, actually, I'll box them. This will give it a little bit more of a bluegrassy feel to emphasize every beats 2 and 4. I'm going to really try to exaggerate so you guys can hear. But if you do that, I didn't actually do that just now. I was thinking it lacked accents. But let me do it, exaggerate it so you can hear how it sounds. Okay, so raise your hand if you guys could hear the accents. Okay, looks like most of you guys could. Okay, so yep, where I boxed in, but every 2 and 4th beat I think would be a good spot to put in the accents. So maybe let me go a little bit farther this time. Some of that I like better than other parts as far as how I did it. But yeah, hopefully that helps. So accents is a big part of fiddle playing. Increasing speed is a big part. Putting in slides and different things to change up the way you play it each time is a big part. So if you guys are more classically trained and haven't done much of this, you definitely don't want to play the piece the same way every time. If you haven't done a lot of that, try to vary it this week, practicing it. Maybe 2 or 3 times. Just try to see if you can play it differently each time. It's definitely an important thing to work on. All right, well, hope that helps and gives you guys something to practice. And right now I'll take some questions, but for those of you guys that are listening after the fact, please visit our webinar area where you can sign up for this class. It's at 9:30 every Monday night. It's one of our more popular classes. Thanks so much. Have a great day.